Hello everyone, I'm Cole from the Kingdom, and today I want to take a look at the writing of one of my favorite Dragon Age characters, Cullen Rutherford. His whole character arc is so... let's see. Unput-downable. His whole character arc is unput-downable to me. I love that we see him in all three games, and his role grows in significance through each one. In Origins, if we play a mage character, we can meet him in the circle, and he's just sort of a timid, relatively new Templar. Later in the game, we see him imprisoned by the Abominations, and he is traumatized. He had been psychologically and maybe physically tortured for at least a few days, if not weeks. He was forced to watch people physically twist into grotesque monstrosities that slaughtered his friends. He advocates for the right of annulment, and I can hardly blame him for that considering what he just went through. Then he transfers to Kirkwall, where the Knight Commander takes him for someone she can easily manipulate due to his trauma, and that's why he rose to the rank of Knight Captain so quickly. When we meet him for the first time as Hawke, he is aggressively interrogating a Templar recruit who, it turns out, is possessed. Through the game, we find him to be...
Mages cannot be treated like people. They are not like you and me.
I think people get hung up on this line, and others like it, and judge his whole character on this, as if he's irredeemable. And yeah, this is pretty bad. But this kind of reminds me of cancel culture. It does more harm than good. We can't judge people entirely on some bad stuff they said, and Cullen is a great example of why. In his case, again, he was tortured for a long time, and then Meredith used that to control him and encouraged his anger and hatred. Of course he would have this opinion at this point in his life. If you take this line in isolation, of course it sounds terrible. But we know what he was subjected to, and how that influenced him. With people that get cancelled in reality, people often laser focus on one thing they said that may have been in poor taste, and that's it. No redemption, no coming back from that. Have you never said something without thinking? Have you never made a joke that you look back at and cringe at yourself? Have you ever had a bad day or just lost your temper and said something you wish you hadn't? For some people and some things, no, there's really no coming back from what they said or did. But this mob mentality, seizing on people and destroying them over a mistake, is unhealthy for everyone involved. I really didn't mean for this to be a video about cancel culture, but it's been bothering me lately. So back to Cullen, I think his redemption arc is handled extremely well, and is a great example that people that made mistakes, did or said bad things, can still change and do good. At the end of the game, if you side with the Templars, he advocates for sparing any mages that surrender, and in any event, he stands against Meredith when she turns on the champion. In the World of Thedas Volume 2, it's said that after several years as Knight Captain, even though he was still uncomfortable around large groups of mages, he noticed something in them, the same fear of him that he had of them. And he remembered that these were the people he swore to protect. It was a long road for him to break free, but he did eventually come to question his blind loyalty to Meredith, and ultimately stood against her. In Inquisition, he expresses regret that he didn't see through her sooner, and he also expresses sincere regret about treating mages with distrust and hostility because of what he went through. He admits that was unworthy of him, and he is trying to be better. I love what Blackwall says about him.
He's got the look of a man who's been through too much. He's seen the best and the worst of humanity, and I think he still struggles with where that leaves him.
I mean, damn if that doesn't concisely describe Cullen's story. When he tells you he's trying to quit his Lyrium addiction, he explains that he wants nothing more to do with that life. Not just because of what it did to him, but because of what he did to others. This is him saying he is no longer who he was. And I also admire how his faith in the Maker and Andraste has remained. It would have been easy for him to reject that too, after everything that happened. But he doesn't. His faith remains a constant in his life. And that is inspiring for me personally. And then we get to contrast him against Samson. Samson is in many ways a warped mirror of Cullen. He is what Cullen could have been. Samson was abandoned by the order he devoted his life to because he chose to do what was right. Cullen fell victim to the order and Meredith's abuse because of his earlier trauma that she exploited. Samson was left to fend for himself without any hope of recovery from his lyrium addiction, and suffered years on the street until Thrask's attempted revolution, which also failed. Corypheus took advantage of Samson's vulnerability and trauma, much in the same way Meredith took advantage of Cullen's. But Cullen came through the other side, holding on to his faith and dedicating himself to being the best of himself. Samson embraced the darkness because he lost faith, not just in the Maker, but in himself. Samson is a walking tragedy. He and Cullen are great because they are both what the other could have been if things had gone just a little differently. So I think that about does it. Cullen's arc is one of my favorites in Dragon Age. I love how they handled the character, growing in significance in each game. His fall in Origins, his struggle in 2, and his redemption in Inquisition. He's an inspiring character with inspiring writing. So that's it for now, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to comment and like. I'll see you later.